Hello, this is the second talk about disaster risk management, and in this I'm going to address very specifically about disaster risk reduction. And to understand this, I want to go through something called the crunch model. In any country there are underlying causes of vulnerability. These are things like poverty, perhaps the ideology of the country, the economy, the power systems, the governance. These are things which underlie the vulnerability of people. And these are also things which we try to address in our normal development programming. So these things mean that people are living in unsafe conditions, such as having very poor physical environment where lack of trees can cause flooding, such as in Haiti, or where weak buildings fall down when there's an earthquake, or where livelihoods simply don't survive during a period of hardship or drought. Now, when a hazard strikes these conditions, and a hazard is something such as an earthquake or a cyclone or a drought, and can even be a violent conflict, when one of those occurs in a community, the combination of the hazard and the vulnerability create the disaster. And it's the impact of that disaster that we want to reduce. So we understand there are two components in this risk. One is vulnerability, the other is the hazard. And we understand that we can address the vulnerability. There's little we can do directly about the hazards themselves, but we can change a lot about how people are living and what the impact will be. Everything that we do in our programming can reduce the risk of disasters, can reduce vulnerability, or it can increase it. We can inadvertently increase disaster risk. This will happen whether we're in a development program or in a disaster response program. We want to build resilient communities. That means communities that can withstand shocks, they can maintain services during a crisis, and they can bounce back and recover quickly afterwards. Disaster risk reduction programs can stand alone, such as a program which will be building community awareness about, for example, cyclone risk, and perhaps even supporting the provision of shelters for them. Or it can cut across other programs. For example, an education program could have a component which makes sure that children learn about disasters, that schools are strong enough to withstand disasters, and that teachers know what to do with their children if a disaster happens. As climate change gets worse and societies have to adapt to the changing conditions, disaster risk reduction will become a significant component of climate change adaptation. And the work in disaster risk reduction happens at community level, at district and national level, and internationally, and particularly by influencing governments to make sure that they have policies and they allocate resources and they plan, recognizing what will happen when disasters happen. For Plan, particularly important is the role of children. And with disaster risk reduction, children can introduce new ideas. They don't accept things as they were. They're very receptive and very, very influential when introducing those ideas, both in household level and with the authorities around them. So Plan particularly works with children in disaster risk reduction.